Rescue operations are underway at this hour at multiple locations throughout Ukraine following a barrage of Russian strikes overnight. Officials say at least 8 people were killed across the country, and that includes 6 near President Zelensky's hometown. More than 20 others were wounded. Officials say the death toll could go up as they scramble to reach people who could possibly be trapped under this rubble. And all of this on the same night that the ominous sound of air raid sirens could be heard in neighboring Poland, which says that an unidentified object crashed and caused an explosion deep inside its territory during those strikes. And this new video is said to show a large crater at the crash site. Russia's targets, including Kyiv, where the attack demolished this market and killed 1 person there. Claire Sebastian keeping an eye on all those developments. She joins me live from London. Claire, I wonder if we could start with this unidentified projectile that was reported in Poland. Is there any new indication on the source of it, possibly Russia?
Well, look, I think authorities in Poland and in Ukraine likely as well are still trying to work out exactly what happened here. But what we know at this moment is that the Polish military said overnight it was monitoring at least a dozen, it said, missiles over Western Ukraine that they said could pose a threat to Polish airspace. Then at one point after 3 o'clock in the morning, they noted that one unidentified object had crossed into Polish airspace. It then promptly disappeared from the radar, and Polish police then said that they found wreckage, a crater and scattered debris, maybe in those pictures that we're showing now, in a village. We think we can show you a map of roughly where that crater is located, about 90 kilometers or so from the border. So this is fairly deep into Poland, mounting, of course, the concern around this. The Ukrainian foreign minister is saying that a Russian Kh-101 cruise missile crashed into Polish territory. We don't know if it's the same missile that made that crater. It's still, at this point, an unidentified object that we're dealing with here. And there's no way to know, of course, if this was deliberate or targeted. These are cruise missiles. If it was one, high precision weapons. But still, that work is still ongoing to determine what happened there. But it does come after a spate of warnings from Poland, from the Baltic countries, those closest to Russia, of the higher potential at this point in the war for Russian provocations, hybrid or other types of attack. The Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk warned just a few weeks ago that Poland was preparing for every scenario. He didn't want to scare anyone, he said, but those intensive preparations were underway. No reaction from NATO as of yet. Poland is, of course, a NATO member, but we are keeping an eye out for that. And, of course, this highlights very clearly, Poland, the risks, the spillover risks of this war, especially as these aerial attacks, these overnight aerial attacks escalate.
In terms of the latest strikes that we've seen launched specifically in Kyiv, Claire, I'm wondering if you can bring us up to speed on what we're learning there.
So, look, this was a pretty major overnight attack. Even with that projectile crossing into Poland, we can't lose sight of the damage that it was inflicted on Ukraine. Multiple different areas of Ukraine were affected. And it comes, of course, 36 hours or so after President Zelensky was in the White House with Donald Trump, making an urgent plea for more help when it comes specifically to air defenses. I think it's notable because previously, when we've seen meetings between Trump and Zelensky, President Putin has tried to get in and speak to Trump as well. We didn't see that this time. Instead, we simply see more escalation, this aggressive posture from the Russian side. So what we know at this point about this attack is at least 8 people were killed, dozens more injured across the country. Several notable incidents in Kryvyi Rih, which is Zelensky's hometown. A missile hit a residential home, killing 5 members of one family, according to officials there, including 3 children. And I want to bring you footage as well from Lviv, all the way over in western Ukraine. Dramatic video, if we can show it, of a boy being pulled out of a damaged building. City authorities say that he was born in 2020 and he survived, but with fractures to his leg. So very widespread. And of course, we're in the final days now of what is the deadliest month for Ukrainian civilians since April of 2022.
Well, we're joined now by Peter Salmayev. He's the director of the Eurasia Democracy Initiative. Peter, it's good to see you.
Good morning.
Good morning to you. I wonder if we could just get started with this. What we're now learning is what you make of this unidentified projectile that hit near a Polish village, some 95 kilometers west of Ukraine's border. So that's certainly towards the country's interior. To add to that, Ukraine's foreign minister went on X saying that a Russian cruise missile went into Polish airspace. In terms of what we know, even if it was unintentional, could that come with some NATO consequences for Russia?
Probably not, and that's precisely what Russia is doing. It if it's doing it, we don't have 100% confirmation of that yet, but it's quite likely, and it's happened before over Polish airspace, over the airspace of Romania, that Russia is actually provoking these countries, like it may have been in this case, to once again prove that NATO will simply sit doing nothing. I mean, there's this mechanism of Article 5, collective security, that dictates that a strike against one NATO member is a strike against them all. They would have to respond, but Putin is sort of, skirting around the edges with plausible deniability that it's not his missile, while at the same time showing NATO up for what it is, an ineffectual, as Putin at least believes, organization that will not stand up for its members. So this may have been yet another such provocation and a test.
What do you make of the timing also when it comes to these latest barrage of Russian strikes against throughout parts of Ukraine, including where you are there in Kyiv? I mean, the timing of this is just days after President Zelensky had what's been described by the U.S. and Ukraine as a positive meeting with President Trump.
Not just the timing, but let's start with the geography. I mean, the entire territory of Ukraine was struck. It seems like Putin had been accumulating enough missiles and drones to attack the entirety of Ukraine, including the westernmost town of Lviv, which is has been kind of a hub, that whole area for the processing of Western supplied weaponry. That's probably another signal from Putin. But if we look at the timing, it happened after, by all accounts, Zelensky's triumphant visit to Washington, at least, judging or comparing with the low standard of that meeting last year when Trump said that Zelensky had no cards. Well, this time, this was quite a triumph, and it looks like the spirit of Anchorage, whatever the Russians are, continuing to refer to, whatever agreements there may have been between Putin and Trump, they're no longer there. They have evaporated. And so Putin is really seething that he's lost the initiative, not just on the front lines, but internationally. And of course, let's not forget that, Ukraine has found an ability to strike ever deeper into Russia. Russia is burning practically every day. Oil refinery facilities are going up in smoke. Logistical hubs are going up in smoke. This is a way for Putin, once again, to assert himself, to show his strength. And he has no other options but to escalate and increase terror against civilians, because the situation on the front lines, like I said, is static. The advance is very slow. Putin cannot and has not been able to show any spectacular successes there.
Peter Zamayev, we wish you continued safety, of course, as we continue to follow this. Thank you, Peter.